Hello everyone, thank you for taking the time to join in. Let's start with the problem that we have to solve. I'm in a Final Cut title template here, but this problem that we're dealing with today would also apply to an effect template or a transition template. I have 3 shape layers animating in on an overshoot, but watch what happens when these 3 layers animate out. You can see that the timing of the overshoot out is wrong and the layers remain in view on the last frame of the template. Now this mistake is happening because for a motion graphic like this, when I want to stagger 3 layers in with an overshoot and then animate them out with a reverse overshoot, I've chosen the wrong method to create the layers. That wrong method is to use clones. In this case, all 3 layers that you can see are actually clones. The source for the 3 clones is a shape layer that is animating in with an overshoot behavior. I've taken clone 2 and 3 and offset them in the timeline to create that staggered effect. Then to try and create the animation out, I applied the reverse overshoot method to the clone source. But as you see, that clearly doesn't work. So what I'm going to do is take this opportunity then to explain to you as much as I can why we don't use clones for something like this. Then I'm going to show you the correct way to animate 3 staggered layers in on an overshoot and then animate them out in reverse. Hey, so I am here in a motion project. It's 1920 by 1080, 30 frames a second. So that's 300 frames, and the first thing I'm going to do is just put a marker here right in the middle because we'll need that later. Okay, just follow along. I'm going to grab a shape layer and add it to this group. Center that. Come to geometry and we'll make this 800 by 150. Okay. Now, I'm going to rename this as source and I'll call this just layer 1. Alright, so to layer 1, just going to make sure I've got show full view area on. I'm going to come to properties and I'm going to grab the X parameter, add an overshoot behavior. Okay, bring it right back, bring the playhead right back to the start and just drag the value back so that it's off screen. Okay, and that's just going to animate in on an overshoot all the way in. Alright. Okay, let's just come and trim that to 2 seconds, and I'm going to drop that down to 1. Okay, so now we have an animation. Alright, nice. Now, I'm going to clone this. Here's my clone layer, and let's just set the clone layer up here. Note that the clone is not following the overshoot because I've cloned the layer directly, and clones won't pick up a behavior if you clone the layer directly. So let's get rid of that clone, and I'm going to grab the group, clone that instead. Alright, I'm going to grab the group, I'm going to call this 1, and this will be 2. So let's just grab the group and shift that up. I'm going to grab the clone, come to filters, come to stylize, come to fill, and okay, we'll give it another color. Alright, so now we see that the clone does pick up the animation. Okay, let's copy that. I'm going to call that 3. Call that 3. Going to change the color and lift that up here. Alright, cool. So now we've got 1, 2, 3 coming in. I'm going to use these clones to create a staggered animation. So I'm going to come back here and go 1, 2, 3, 4, grab number 2 here and shift left bracket to move it over. Come forward 1, 2, 3, 4 more, grab this one here and shift left bracket to move it over. Okay, so now I have got a staggered animation in. Cool. So we've used clones to create a quick offset of an animation. It's one way to go about it. We could have used sequence replicator. We're using clones in this case. Alright, so now from here, I'm going to come to the halfway point and I am going to get all of these together. And I'm going to, first of all, I'm just going to make sure each of these is trimmed to this halfway point. And this one as well. We want everything trimmed here. Okay, now I'm going to take all of these and add them to this group here. And I'm going to call this the building. Okay, so now I am going to grab this building group and clone that. And I'm going to call this the build out. And I'm going to come to the end of my project and shift right bracket to move everything up there. Then I'm going to come to the clone, this clone's timing properties. I mean, right now what we've got is it's just going to repeat itself. But if we come and grab the timing properties, we can then reverse that. So we have an animation in and we have an animation out. Now, note here that the first layer in is the last layer out. The last layer in is the first layer out. And most importantly, all of these layers animate out on the last frame. Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is convert this to a title template. Okay, so I'm just going to come up here to the menu to File, Convert Project to Title. Alright, I'll give it a placeholder, we don't really need it. Convert. Okay, I'm going to just get rid of the default text and turn off this title background asset, and I'm going to save it as I'm going to save this one as the wrong method with clones. I'll put that in the channel group there and publish that. Alright, so now it's a title. Let's have a look at these timing options. We can see that now we're in a title template, they have disappeared. So it's not going to reverse. What we'll see is that it's just going to snap back to the start. Okay. The overshoot behavior was introduced in Motion version 5.3 in December of 2017. At that time it did not have a local reverse function, and as we can see today it still doesn't have a local reverse function. I found a method to reverse the overshoot behavior in early 2019. I shared it first with my team at the developer I was working for, and then I shared it with the wider community through my channel and at the various user groups I belong to online. There were probably plenty of motion professionals who figured out the method that I use, but as far as I can see, the only online source for information, on YouTube at least, is my original lessons that I posted back then. I put a link in the description if you do want to go and check out that original lesson, but soon we'll be going over the method step by step, so if you stick around you'll be able to pick it up then. Before that though, we have to look at what doesn't work. So let's follow the general principles of that lesson at the other channel, and I'll show you why clones are not the right solution for something like this. This won't take long at all, we're just going to repeat the steps. Okay, I'm going to add a group here. I'm going to call that source, and in this group I'm going to add a shape layer, center it, Okay, come to geometry and we'll make that again 800 by 150. Alright, now we are going to clone that. I'm going to grab the overshoot and apply that here. Alright, trim that to 2 seconds. Cool. We'll just set the cycles to 1 again, and then we're just going to come back here and move it off the screen to the edge. Alright, so we have our overshoot. And okay, so next step, I'm going to clone that and I'll turn off the source, and I'm going to call this 1, call this 1. Alright, I'm going to clone it again, call this 2, call this 2, and I will just lift up this shape layer and throw a filter on there. Okay, give it another color and going to duplicate that, call it 3, and just gonna grab this one up here. Okay, so we can see them all. Give the fill another color. Alright, now from here we're going to grab clone 2, come forward 1, 2, 3, 4, shift, left bracket, 1, 2, 3, 4 more, grab clone 3. Okay, so again, we're using clones to create the animation. Okay, so what we're going to try and do now is use the reverse overshoot method to animate everything out. Because we're stuck with clones, this is not going to go the way that we want. Alright, I'm going to come and grab this rectangle here and I'm going to bring it back to the halfway. I'm going to clone that. I'm going to grab the rectangle layer here and trim that to start here, and the clone I'm going to trim to begin here. Let's just call this out. Alright, now I'm going to take this overshoot behavior and drag a copy to out, and then I'm going to grab this and apply a reverse behavior to it. This is what we get. And so now we are in the situation where something's gone wrong. Okay, and what's gone wrong is that we tried to do an animation like this, where we want to use overshoot on a shape layer, but we've used clones to create the animation. And here's what's happening. So note that we have got, in this case, we've got the first frame in being the first frame out. So it's not actually reversing, right? Remember we saw before, it should be this one here, the last one in should be the last one out. Okay, so this all goes back to the fact that to create the stagger, we've got 4 frames in, and we got 8 frames for this one. Even though we can invert the behavior of the source, we cannot invert the timing of the clones that we've staggered in the timeline. What this means is that a 4-frame delay is still a 4-frame delay, and an 8-frame delay is still an 8-frame delay. If we want to correctly reverse this animation out with the correct timing, we need a 4-frame delay to invert to be 4 frames earlier, and we need an 8-frame delay to invert to be 8 frames earlier. That's why those layers don't animate out correctly and remain on screen. Now that we know that clones are not the right option, let's look at how to do this correctly. Alright then, as you see, I'm just starting over here from square one. I've got one shape layer, 800 by 150. It's centered in the project. Alright, so let's begin. I'm going to just rename it 1 and come and grab that X position, and I'm going to add my overshoot. My playhead's right at the middle. I'm just going to trim the behavior to start there. Come back to the first frame. I'll set the cycles to 1 and we'll drag it off screen. Okay, so there is our animation, and now it's running the full 150 frames there. I want it to start at I want it to finish at the 2-second mark. Okay, so which is 60, so I need a value of 150 minus 60 in my end offset value, so that gives us a value of 90. Okay, so now our behavior will end on the 2-second mark. Cool. Now from here I want to just animate this layer out, and what we're going to do is animate this layer out with the reverse overshoot method applied correctly. I'm going to add a group up here. I'm going to call this nulls 1. I'm going to take this one here, copy it and paste it in there, and I'm going to get rid of the overshoot on this. Okay, this is going to be 1 in, and this is going to be 1 in. Just going to rename that overshoot behavior. Okay, now I'm going to come and grab 1 in and trim that right there, 4.29. Okay, now I'm going to duplicate 1 in and call that 1 out. Call the behavior 1 out. I'm going to take 1 in, 1 out, drop it under in the layers panel. Okay, so we've got 1 in, 1 out. There's my 1 in behavior, there's my 1 out behavior. Okay, I'm going to take 1 out and move it up the end, and I'm going to grab the X position now and throw on there that reverse parameter behavior. Okay, so we've got the layer coming in and we've got the layer coming out. Just turn off this one for now. One layer coming in and another layer animating out. Alright, so I'll turn this one back on, and what we're going to do is we'll leave those on for now. I'm just going to turn the just so you can see what's happening, let's move these up here and let's drop 1 out down so we can see it. And you know what, I am going to change the size of these to be just 200 square. Okay, 1 in, where are you? 1 in, come on, 1 in. There you are. Okay, there's 1 in and there's 1 out. Okay, I'm just going to give in a color and out. A color. Alright, so what we see now is in coming in and out going out. Alright, so I'm going to grab the X position and add a link to that. Come to 4.29, trim that link. Where are we? Here's our link. Where is our link? Here we are, here's our link. Okay, I'm going to call this in and drag in 1 in as the source. Okay, now I'm going to copy that link, drop it under, 1 in copy, going to call this out, and this link we're going to move up the end here. Okay, and we are going to add out as the source for that. So if I select the layer, you can see now these are the behaviors. It's coming in on 1. Okay, so this is for 1. This is where the links swap, and it's going out on out. And so our visible layer, we're going to turn these nulls off. There's our visible layer. Animating in. And animating out. Okay, so now we've set up reverse behavior correctly. Okay, so from here we want to add 2 more layers. And we want those layers to stagger in correctly on the animation in and stagger out correctly on the animation out, so that the first layer in is the last layer out, and that everything is animated out by the last frame. Okay, we're going to take nulls 1, put them into their own group, nulls 1 and everything into its own group, and I'm going to call this 1. Okay, now I'm going to duplicate that and call this 2. Let's just move it up. Alright, move it up in here, and just going to take the time to rename everything. And that's going to be 2 in, it's going to be 2 out. That, and that's going to be 2 out, and this is going to be 2, that's going to be 2. Right, we've got in and out. I've just jumped in here now to edit over and speed this boring part up for you. What I'm doing now is linking layer 2 to all the functional parameters I would need in layer 1. I've linked the height and width independently, x and y scale independently, x and y anchor point independently, and I'll also be doing the roundness. The reason I'm doing this, of course, is because without clones I need to transfer properties from one layer to the other. Alright, so now I'm going to come and right now it comes in together, so I'm going to come to 2 in, and I want this start offset at 4, so then we want an end offset -4, so 86. So that is staggering in correctly in, and it should animate out before the white one. No, I have to go to out, and we want 86 on the off and 4 on the start offset. Alright, so now we have the blue layer will animate out first, followed by the white. Okay, so I'm going to grab everything here now, duplicate that, call that 3. I will just speed through me renaming everything here. Yep, okay, good to go. I'm going to grab 3 and let's just shift it up, give it another color. Let's have that. Alright, now in this one's in, we want an offset of 8 and an end offset of 92. Sorry, 82. So we're adding another 4 to this one, and we've got to subtract another 4 to this one. And in the out, we are going to do the same. Okay, add 4 to the start, subtract 4 from the end. Alright, let's see how that looks. Okay, and there we go. So what you see now is that we have correctly reversed these animation layers. And now we've got, we've got last layer in is the first layer out, and so on till the first layer in is the last layer out, and everything animates out correctly. And with that we are done. So just to review, what we looked at is why using clones in a graphic like this, if you're going to be working in a title template where the clone retiming functions are not available, it is better to go with duplicated linked layers whenever you're going to need to build in and build out with the overshoot behavior. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next one.